Vandeham Sri Guru Shri Kamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Cha Sri Rupam Shadrugatam Shahadranam Tam Tam Shajivam Satsaitam Savadhitam Paditim Shaitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Shahagana Lalita Shri Shatam Vitam Shamantra Gururaja Shikha Guru Ganta Charanaya Tatarya Bandhan Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Namaste Shri Devi Gaudamani Pechani Vishesha Hare Krishna. At the end of the Adikonda, Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat by Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur, he describes the extraordinary event of Lord Chaitanya going to Gaya Dham and taking initiation, he had his initiation from Srila Ishvara Puri Prabhupada in Gaya Dham. And that was a very extraordinary event, which we'll hear some of the details of this evening. Historically, actually, before I was mercifully delivered by Srila Prabhupada's disciples in Melbourne, Australia, I was in art school. I was studying a degree in fine arts. And we studied the history of art. History as oil painting, majoring in oil painting. And we studied the history of fine arts. And we studied about something which was called Renaissance. Renaissance. It's an Italian word. It means rebirth. Renaissance. Several of the exalted listeners this evening are nodding their heads. Perhaps they're also familiar with art history. Renaissance. At that time, there were people like Leonardo da Vinci, notebooks, Michelangelo. In fact, the concept of God in the Christian faith, the concept of God is an old man with a beard. That's actually is not described in the literature, but from the painting of Michelangelo, the God is reaching out, touching. So their whole theology is based upon that particular artist's perception. There's nothing like we have descriptions. Venum Kwanantam Aravinda Dalayadaksham Bahavatam Asitam Purushundarangam Gandharpa Koti Kamani Vishesha Shobham Govinda Mahari Purusham Tambaham. Venum Kwanantam with the peacock feather in his hair. Bahavatam Shitam is blackish curly hair like a darkish monsoon cloud. Asit Ambud Sundarangam, Asit Ambud Sundar, Asit Ambud, coloring dark like a blackish cloud. There's so many detailed descriptions of that in the Vedic literature of the form of the Lord. So that was an interesting time, though, in terms of culture in the Western world. A Renaissance means that they were reviving the interest in the Greek culture. The Greek culture, the Greeks, they had statues, David and all of this ideal form of the human. So there's a Renaissance, was a revival of that. It actually, anyway, artistically, it was the height of the Western culture. In Shakespeare and Michelangelo and science and all of this. It's all going on at the time. It's no coincidence that actually that was the time that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had appeared on the planet. It was 1500. Mahaprabhu was born in 1486. If you're ever trying to break into a devotee's locker, then try 1486. There's a good chance you'll crack the jackpot. So remember that, 1486, Mahaprabhu appeared. And then so he was 15 years old. We were, those of you who were fortunate to visit Mayapur Dham. What month was that? May, this year. Yeah, not so long ago at all, Mayapur Dham. Navadip Dham Jeba Kore Gaman Sharva Aparad Mukta Hoy Shejun. Just by going to Navadip, you're delivered of all offenses. Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains. Sharva Tirtha Brahmaya Chaitika Jahapar. The pilgrim, what result he gets, Sharva Tirtha Brahmaya, of visiting all the holy places. Navadip Sharane Shaila Shastra. Just by remembering Navadip, you get the result of visiting all of the holy places. Just by remembering. So I take opportunity to remember. And you walked around Navadip. Navadip Bromite, walking in Navadip. Navadip Bromite, Jai Pode Pode Pal. What you get with every step, Sharva, a Koti Ashvamedapal. Koti, 10 million. Koti Ashvamedapal, Sharva Shastra. 10 million, the results, people sometimes say, oh, what do you do in Mayapur? I say, I take a few steps every day. I mean, Yudhishthira Maharaj, he performed 3 Ashvamedha yajnas. And he was the king. Yudhishthira, what effort is required to perform Ashvamedha yajna? Navadip Brahmiti, it is wandering, it doesn't even matter where you're going. You're wandering here and there. Navadip Brahmiti, Jai Pode Pode Pai, Koti Ashvamedha Pal, Chala Chakra. Anyway, you were so fortunate to be able to visit. And we were discussing about Mahaprabhu's marriage to Lucky Priya. So that happened in English, he was 16 years old. So that was English 1500. Now the Renaissance went from 1480 to 1520, or the Renaissance. 1480 to 1520. This is the time that Mahaprabhu was on the planet. Because naturally all the artists became affected. In the same way as I was discussing with His Grace, Narottam Priya Prabhu, as we were driving from the airport yesterday. We were discussing about how extraordinary it was that when Prabhupada, he first went to New York City, and there also, I mean, we're hearing in our Prabhupada course that we'll be hearing about how he struggled. So this morning we were hearing from 1938, after receiving the order from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur to preach in English, from 1938 to 1952, 15 years, he was completely on his own. And struggling, writing so many letters, writing hundreds of letters to government leaders to try to spark a world revolution of Krishna consciousness. He wasn't having success. And then later he had to struggle, even having taken sannyas, still he wasn't bestowed with great facility and opulence. Yeah, even having taken sannyas. You see in Prabhupada's room, Bhaktivedanta Swami publication of Srimad Bhagavatam first canto. It was personally published by Prabhupada, each volume. He had to struggle for each volume and sell the first volume to get funds for the second volume. Even having taken sannyas, everything was a struggle. And when he went to New York, also he was a struggle. It wasn't that he had to go from here and here like a beggar and get accommodation in someone's friend's place, and then first in yoga, Dr. Mishra's yoga studio, a tiny little cubicle. He was similarly struggling in New York. And then gradually, a handful of people, Mukunda Goswami, Mukunda Maharaj, and a few others, they got the storefront, 26 2nd Avenue, and Prabhupada began giving class. And then the first Janmashtami came, and then Prabhupada gave an initiation ceremony. So then he had 10 disciples, Western people, and things. They began back to Godhead, Ramananda, and Hayagriva, Kirtanananda. So some key players, committed preachers in New York. But when he went to San Francisco, already it wasn't like that anymore. From the time second ISKCON sent to San Francisco, by that time, Mukunda had gone to San Francisco. They recruited Shama, Shunda, and their wives. And so already there was a team. He cruised into San Francisco. There was a big reception. There was Allen Ginsberg, a famous poet, receiving him. It's in the newspaper. So, at that time, there was an unprecedented event in the history of mankind. That at that time, the Americans, they had won the Second World War in 1945, and then there's a period around that period from 1945 to 1950 that's called the baby boom. Actually, baby boom. Because all the soldiers that came back had been in the front lines for several years. They came back, so they're all having babies naturally. Right? What can you expect? They're just ordinary people. They're not like transcendental devotees that can overcome these things. So it's called baby boom. And there's so many young girls. So at that time, so they're all of the ISKCON leaders. They're all from that, born around that time, 1950. 1950. And now that makes them like 76, 75, mid 70s. And there was so many of them. There was like a huge, the youth. There was a big a boom of all young people. And then, who knows why? Because Prabhupada was on the planet. For some reason in 1966, they all started to converge on San Francisco to a particular neighborhood called Haight-Ashbury. Haight-Ashbury. It was Golden Gate Park, you know. And all of the young people from all over America, their songs, "Are you going to San Francisco?" Like, it was such a thing. And there were like hundreds, even thousands of young people and what were they doing? They were looking for God. They were actually looking for God. So that had never happened before. You never hear of said that all the young people become crazy for God. Why did it happen? And then Prabhupada, he was there. He had a temple on the street right at that place. So, we preach. we try to convince people to give up their sinful ways and take to the pure life of Krishna consciousness. We try to deliver the people. Tomar loite yami hoinu avatar. My avatar has come to reclaim you. Tomar loite yami hoinu avatar. Ami bina bondu kaya tomar. Beside me, what friend do you have? So we're trying to deliver the people. But maybe let's sort of once in 5 years, maybe once in 10 years, or that sort of a person, a gem who's just like so much fired up about Krishna consciousness. You just like put the spark and then boom, they become so surcharged and empowered and they're preaching. It's such a rare to find such a person. Sa Mahatma Sudulabha. Manushyanam sahasreshu kashchit jatiti siddhaye. Manushyanam sahasreshu. Out of thousands of men. Kashchit yatiti siddhaye. Hardly any will endeavor for self-realization. That's the usual statistic. The usual environment. But Prabhupada was there, and Prabhupada, he had the most sublime message and the process of Krishna consciousness, the chanting Hare Krishna. Dinna hinna jota chilo, hori name udharilo. The holy name is such that no matter how fallen you are, dinna hinna jota chilo, the extent of being degraded, hari name udharilo, you're eligible for chanting the holy name and becoming delivered. So what a message Prabhupada, even a message like that had never been heard of in the Western world before. And love of God. Golokeda Prem Dhan, Harinam Sankirtan. The Golokeda Prem Dhan. The treasure of love, of loving God in the spirit. Golokeda Prem Dhan. Harinam Sankirtan. That's easily available. So there was Prabhupada. And so he came and he's preaching and then literally there are hundreds of people wandering on the street who were searching after God. I mean, so what a time. So that was such a time. I mean, it's not like that now. People not like that. But every morning people would just be wandering in. Prabhupada would be lecturing and people were wandering in. And people that joined from that place, the list of the empowered teachers and leaders of this movement who joined at that time, like Shyam Sundar and Malati, and then Tamal Krishna Maharaj, and Madhudisa Maharaj, and Vishnu Jan Swami, and Revati Nandan Maharaj, and then a few months later, Jaipataka Swami Maharaj, just walking in off the street. So, I mean, that was like, you could see that the whole cosmic, whole cosmic timing and everything was in alignment with Prabhupada at that time to go and spread his message. And it was all those young people, actually, they were the energy that spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. After that, Prabhupada never was going in somewhere like on his own. After he sent the disciples, they opened up centers everywhere. It was like they had American passports and could go anywhere. And they were just such courageous people. And they went to all and then his Grihastha disciples went to London. The Prabhupada sannyasi scholar, Sanskrit scholar, renunciate godbrothers, they were not able to be successful. And Prabhupada sent his young householders with a child, a little girl, Shamsundar and Nalaki, a little girl, Saraswati, and sent them to London. And then within the Krishna consciousness became well known all over the world. They had a record, George Harrison, the Beatles. So the time was just so extraordinary when Prabhupada came with his message to the Western world. It was amazing. So, like that, so what can we say? We can say that all we can speculate that, because Prabhupada didn't say it and we don't hear it described, but we can speculate that it was arranged. The people of the world were affected. People of the world, everyone was affected because of Prabhupada's presence on the planet. In the Bhagavatam, in the 4th canto, in the pastimes of Dhruva Maharaj, where Dhruva is performing his penance under the direction of his guru, Srila Narada Muni. So he did the first month eating fruits, the forest fruits, once every 3 days. Then the next month, once every 6 days, eating dry leaves. And then the next month, once every 9 days, drinking water. And then the next month, every 12 days, he took a breath. He was only a young boy, 5 years old. The austerity of Dhruva Maharaj. So then he was standing, and those of you, I see many healthy, vibrant physiques present. Perhaps many of you practicing Ashtanga Yoga. Ashtanga Yoga. So you can do the Tadasan, like a tree. You stand on one leg, Tadasan. I do a little bit yoga, but I don't do all the boring poses like that one. It was a stand like that on one foot. So, like a tree, Tadasan, he was doing that posture. And then standing on the one foot, and the pressure that his toe pressing into the earth, it was creating, the whole earth was feeling the pressure. The whole earth was feeling the pressure. And Prabhupada writes in the purport, he writes that the consciousness of one exalted soul can influence the entire planet. So it must have been that Prabhupada, he came out and that Krishna was affecting all of this. But Brahmayan Sharva Bhutani Jantari Yudhani Maya, he's directing the wandering. So he brought them all to San Francisco. What to speak of when the Supreme Lord himself is on the planet and performing pastimes. And then there's this moment when Mahaprabhu goes to Gaya and takes initiation. It's like a climax. Right? Climax. Yes. Like a special, I mean, every moment of Mahaprabhu's life. Mono diye shuno bai, Sri Chaitanya Kota, Bhakti Shange, Jai Jai Leela Goilo Jota Jota. Everything that he does with his devotees, Bhakti Shange, Jai Jai Leela Goilo Jota. Vrindavan Das Thakur, he's describing in detail, because every little thing that he does is so extraordinary. Every little activity. It's not like us. We're just boring people. We came to Krishna consciousness, so it's we're surcharged. It's an exciting life. But can you imagine how boring we would be without Krishna consciousness if we're just a normal person? Like nothing exciting in life. Maybe that's it. You're scrolling on your, that's about as exciting, about as heated up as your mind gets. Watching the reels on the Instagram. The rest of your life is just boring, boring, boring. For Mahaprabhu's life, nothing boring. Everything is transcendental. The associates, they all appear there just to be participating in these pastimes. Navadip Ache Oddapok Shiromani Gangadash Pandit Henu Shandipani. The guru of Krishna and Balaram, Sandipani Muni, he appears in Navadip as Gangadas Pandit just to be the teacher of Nimai. Joto Baka Gangadas Pandit Koren, Shukrit Shunile Matro Kako Doren. Whatever Gangadas Pandit said, Shukrit Shunile Matro, hearing it once, Kako Doren, Nimai would remember. And so even every day at school was so extraordinary. Everything that his spiritual master, his teacher, everything he said is Vyakaran, Ekanta Tatrabit. He was Vyakaran, the grammar. Everything that he said was Leela. And Nimai was becoming such a student. And then within 9-10 years old, he had his own college. Sharva Navadipe, Sharva Lo Koilo Dhani, Nimai Pandit, Oddapok Shido Mani. All you could hear through Navadip, Sarva Navadipe, Sharva Lo Koilo Dhani. All that you could hear from the lips of the people. Nimai Pandit, Oddapok Shido Mani. Nimai Pandit, he's the fresh jewel of all of the professors. So I mean, even his teaching, everything was just so extraordinary. But even within that, just a rollout of extraordinary activities and qualities, he's saying that Pashu Pati Jure, the beasts and the birds cry, Pashana Vidore, the stone melts, Shuni, Jara, Guna, Gata, hearing their qualities. When you hear their activities and their qualities, it melts stone. So even with everything that he does is so extraordinary, but even with it, there's some extra extraordinary moments. There's some extra extraordinary moments, like him going there to Gaya down. So then he was, at 1500 in the Western calendar, he was married. And then that was 16. And then he went to Gaya when he was 19 years old. So that was about English calendar, Western calendar, 1503. And then the High Renaissance. That's the special period when Michelangelo did the Sistine Chapel and Leonardo da Vinci. That was from 1500 to 1510. So almost right in the middle of that, Mahaprabhu takes initiation, 1503, and then 4 years later takes sannyas. So that was within that, you can just see the effect that it was having on all the artists in the world and all the thinkers. Everybody was affected. Even there was religious reformation in Europe, and there was breakaways from the Catholic Church at that time, all around that time. Lutheranism and the Anglican Church and the Baptists and all of these evangelical, they all began at that time. So much was happening before. The printing press began at that time in the West, the printing press. First printed Bible. So Mahaprabhu, he was in Navadip, he was enjoying his pastimes of scholarly pastimes. He was enjoying, just like in Braj. Nandanandan, he enjoys. He's called Braj Bihari. He enjoys the pastimes in Braj. And Gopi Jana Ranjan, he enjoys pleasing the Brajavasis. And Brajendra Nandan Jai Shachishuta Hoilo Shay. The same Brajendra Nandan, he's appeared in the house of Sachi Devi. In Braj, he's a cowherd boy. And in Navadip, he's a Brahmin. So he's just playing the pastimes according to his family occupation. Krishna was Gopal looking after the cows, and Nimai Pandit, he was a scholar and a teacher. That's what the Brahmins did. Actually, Navadip was a place of the scholars. Chatur dik hoite, from all directions. Log Navadip Ajai. Everyone was coming to Navadip Navadip Poryale, because if you study in Navadip, Shay Biddaraj, you get a taste for learning. So what that is an environment. There are hundreds of scholars, thousands of scholars, tens of thousands of students. And Nimai was enjoying. He was the most brilliant scholar. The most, he was Dvijamoni. Dvijamoni. In the morning time, we'll sing that song. Not the time to sing now. Maybe Monday morning we'll sing. That Puraba, is it Udilo Oruna Puraba Bhage in the eastern horizon. Udilo Oruna, reddish sun rises. Puraba Bhage on the eastern side, Dvijamoni, the jewel of the Brahmins, Dvijamoni, the jewel of the Brahmins, Dvijamoni, Gouda, Amane Jage, Bhakata Shamo Halaya, taking his devotees with him, Gela, Nogoda Braja, he goes into the villages, Kirtan. So he's Dvijamani, he's the jewel of the Navadip Brahmins. And he's enjoying. He defeated Keshav Kashmiri at that time, a little earlier. He's enjoying. Sarva Navadipe, Proti Nogode, Shishigon, Shonge, Bidraj, Kridapode. Through one town, one village after another, he would, with his students, wander and debate and defeat and express his knowledge. He was enjoying. So then he decided that he would go to Gaya Dam, Vrindavan Das Thakur is describing Chitta Icha Hoilo, Atma Prakash Korite, Babilin Age Ashi, Gaya Gaya Hoite. So his Chitta Icha Hoilo, Atma Prakash Korite. He's thinking now, he's beginning to think that now, Atma Prakash, I will reveal myself. Atma Prakash. He's thinking, I will reveal myself. Because Yoga Maya, the illusory potency on the transcendental platform, was covering all of the associates of the Lord, even though they're eternal associates, like Advaita Acharya. They don't think that Nimai Pandit is Swayam Bhagavan. They don't think that. In the earlier years, Nimai used to come every day to Advaita Acharya's Shobha, assembly of the Vaishnavas, where they would discuss Gita, Vishwarup would discuss, and they would hear. And Nimai would come to call Vishwarup for lunch in the noon, Sachi Devi having cooked the lunch. And he would grab on the dhoti and say and call, Mother is coming, come for lunch. And seeing his form of Gaur Gopal, all of the Paramhansa Vaishnavas became stunned, like almost in samadhi, and their mouths dropped open and they couldn't even carry on glorifying Krishna. Just seeing the beauty of Gaur Gopal. And Advaita Acharya is seeing that and thinking, how is this possible? Because these are all Paramhansa, they're liberated souls, and they're not attracted to anything in the material world. How can they become enamored by the form of a child? Mone chintai Advaita Mahashaya Prakrita Manushto a Balagnai. He concludes, Mone chintai. Is it going again and again in his mind? Mone chintai. He's not sure about it. He's kind of thinking over and over. Mone chintai. Advaita Mahashaya Prakrita Manushto. Prakrita Manushto a Balagnai. This boy is not material. Otherwise, how could he attract the mind of these so many Paramhansa liberated by the boy? Must not be the child. But even though he's the one who sat in the banks of Ganga in Shantipur and prayed for the appearance of the Lord, he can't recognize. And he's God. He's Mahavishnu. He's not hanging out with Srivas Thakur. Hey, Naraj, remember me? I'm lying on the ocean, the causal ocean. They're not thinking like that. They're just Brahmins in Navadip. Isn't it amazing? isn't it? Isn't Sachi Devi? Sachi Devi, she doesn't think that one day Mahaprabhu was walking with his students and they saw 20 sannyasis on the streets of Navadip. How often you have 20 sannyasis visiting ISKCON Radha Rasvi Hari Mandir? 20 sannyasis. Maybe 5, maybe even not even that many. 2. Maybe some special event. 5, 10 sannyasis. Navadip every day wandering on the street, 20 sannyasis. Mahaprabhu sees them, invites them for lunch. Maybe that was 11 o'clock, 11:30 in the morning. He invites 20 sannyasis for lunch. He sends a student, tell Sachi Devi, get ready. She gets a message. Within an hour and a half, 20 sannyasis are coming. So how did she respond? Oh, that's okay. My son is God. I can cook hundreds of sannyasis in 10 minutes. My son is God. How did she respond? Gore kichunai, I chinte mone mone. Gore kichunai. There's nothing in the kitchen. Gore kichunai, I chinte mone mone. Purijan sannyasi, bikka gore kemone. How will we feed 20 sannyasis? She's immediately overwhelmed in anxiety. She doesn't think that her son is God. Even in a dream, Jagannath Mishra, an effulgent Brahmin appeared to him in a dream and said that, Jagannath Mishra, you're correcting your son when he makes a slight discrepancy. You're correcting him, but this is not appropriate because your son is not. Imagine a dream like this. Your son is not an ordinary child. He's like an ocean of knowledge. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in the dream, Jagannath Mishra replies, Mishra Kohe, Dev Shiti Muni Keninoi. Yes, he may be a great Muni. He may be a great perfected being. He may be dead. He may be a God. He may be the Supreme God. Mishra Kohe, Dev Shiti Muni Keninoi Jai She Borohok. No matter how big and important he is, Matro Amar Tanoi, but still he's my son, and it's my responsibility to correct his mistakes. So even they tell him your son's God, it doesn't register. So how is that possible? Well, that's what's called Vatsalya Bhav, that it's so strong. It's so strong. There's so much playing the parts of Krishna's parents and play that's serving him because he wants to enjoy those relationships. And they're called Mitta Lila. He's enjoying. He's not just an impersonal without friends, hanging out on the throne and judging the people. No, he's enjoying all different varieties of relationships, loving relationships with unlimited beings. That's what it is. That's the end of the story. So then when you revive those relationships, they're so strong that you just play the part completely and you don't even think he's God. Because how can you be the parent? Like Maja Soda, she takes the stick to if she's thinking he's God, he can break the butter pots, play with the monkeys, I have no objection. Then how can he enjoy that? How can he enjoy the parental? So their love is so strong that even they don't care that he's God. They don't think that he's God. So now he's thinking that chitta icha hoilo, atma prakash korite. He's thinking now, let me reveal to them who I am. Even that's extraordinary because everything is done in such a beautiful way. We'll go through. I mean, those people who are born in Krishna consciousness, those people who are born in Krishna consciousness, I don't know, maybe some here, maybe not. But those people, there's one there, Yagya, Hridoy Yagya's son. So they grow up with Krishna consciousness. They never go through like a conversion. But we went through, it's a sublime experience. We were in darkness. Even though I was in so much darkness that Prabhupada was dancing on the streets of Melbourne in front of Lord Jagannath. Prabhupada, what a scene. I mean, within a day of Brahma, who gets to witness such a thing? That's such a devotee who delivered the world. And there he is dancing on the streets. And I was just a few kilometers away from that. But I was completely in ignorance. And I had no idea that Prabhupada was just a few kilometers away dancing on the street. I had no idea. And I missed that opportunity. He visited Melbourne 5 times. And I was perhaps 8 years old to 14 years old. Of course, even that's how powerful he is, that even you come a little bit close, you still it's so powerful that it can change your life. Even you don't have to get so close, but I just met people that met him, and that was enough. The reverberations were still so great. But still, the illusory energy is so powerful that I had no idea what was going on the planet. I had no idea what was going on the main street. And many times we would visit the main street. But that's the power of ignorance. That's the power. It's dangerous. It's dangerous because you don't think you're in ignorance. You don't think you're in ignorance. You think you're fine. But you're in deep ignorance. So that experience of opening your eyes and changing everything, it's very special. It's a special experience where you change and you change your behavior. You become strict about things. You don't do these things anymore. You change the whole revolutionized consciousness. It's a nice experience to go through. But people who are born in Krishna consciousness, for them, they don't have such a shocking experience. It's just they just cruise from the beginning. So the illusory energy. So anyway, that's the Maya, that's the material illusion. How powerful is that? Material illusion. We should be careful that we could fall into illusion again. And fall into illusion again. And then are lost. Who knows? We come so close already. So what to speak of the divine illusion, the Lord's direct illusion upon the associates. So he's desiring now to give them the pleasure of recognizing that, that Nimai Pandit, he's God. Nimai Pandit, he's God. It's like big headlines. So it's all Leela. It's not in the very beginning they know, and it's all his whole life. He goes through this, through this behavior, and then they all realize that he's God. It's like so. It's so attractive. Bavilen age ashe Gaya Gaya hoitev. And he thinks that before I begin to reveal myself, I'll visit Gaya Dham. So then he's going, takes a few students, and then Prakrita Loke Prayi Vaikuntha Ishvara Lok Shikha Dekaite Dorilen Cha. That just like an ordinary person on the journey, Prakrita Loke Prayi, like an ordinary person, Prakrita Loke Prayi, Thakur Vaikuntha Ishvara, the Lord of Vaikuntha, Lok Shikha Dekaite Dorilen Jo, he got fever on the way, on the path. Of course, fever is a serious thing. This is not like now. You get penicillin, you get this, that. Fevers, you have a fever, not a big. In these days, fever can mean you can die. There's still some fevers that will kill you: dengue, malaria, typhoid. They're not treated properly, and kill you. So you got fever, and they were trying all sorts of things. And then Mahaprabhu himself, he explained that you have to give me the water which has washed the feet of a Brahmin. It will cure all disease. So they got the water washed of a pure Brahmin, and then Mahaprabhu immediately became cured of that disease, of that fever. Now, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in his purports, he comments that actually this is part of this message here, why Mahaprabhu is going to Gaya. It's to perform a religious function, but actually that performance, even if you become a devotee and you chant Hare Krishna, it's automatically done. You don't actually need to perform Shraddha, ceremony, if you're already practicing Krishna consciousness. Vishwash kohe sudrida nishchoy Krishna bhakti korile sharva karma krita hoy. Just by doing Krishna bhakti, then all of the other religious obligations are fulfilled. But the devotees, they still perform the various religious functions, which are dealing with morality in the mundane world. They perform them because if they don't, then the people in general will speak ill of them, and that will be detrimental for the people in general if they speak ill about a Vaishnava. So because they're not elevated to understand the principles, then a devotee acts like an ordinary person externally. And for that reason, Mahaprabhu took sannyas, even though it's not required. He took sannyas because of the opinion of the local people. Tobe more deke shei dharibe charan, e mota udharibo shakal bhuvan. Just by seeing me, they'll touch my feet. And in this way, I'll deliver all of the people that previously they weren't. When Mahaprabhu was doing the Sankirtan in Navadip, there were many people who were actually critical of him. But when he became a sannyasi, then they were all respectful to him and they're delivered in that way. So the opinion of the local people is something we have to consider, evaluate in this preaching strategy. So these are the reasons why Mahaprabhu actually going to Gaya Dham, because it's expected to do that ceremony. Snan Kori Pitri Dev Kori Archan, he's entering Gaya Dham. Actually, I visited one time with Narottam Priya Prabhu. And Chaitanya Avatar in Gaya Dham. So he entered Gaya Dham. What did he do? Snan Kori, he took his bath. Pitri Dev Koriya Archon. Pitri Dev, and worship ancestors and demigods. Gaite Pravishta Hoila Sri Satchinandan, entering Gaya Dham. Took bath, worship the forefathers, and gave offerings of oblations. Then he's doing the various ceremonies. When he sees the Brahmins who are sitting around the lotus feet of Madhusudan, there's a lotus feet of Madhusudan. Who's been to Gaya Dham? Who's been there? Amongst this exalted assembly. Wow. Nangarani, and many others. Gaya Dham. Wow. Gaudama Jai Shabashtane Korela Brahmana Ronge Shai Shabashtan Heribo Ami Pranai Bhakta Shonge. All of the places where Gaudama Prabhu, Mahaprabhu, Korela Brahmana Ronge, his pastimes, Shai Shabashtan, all of those pastimes, Heribo Ami, I will see Pranai Bhakta Shonge, with loving devotees. So you have a desire, go to these places. It's an easy place to get to Gaya. You go by train. Gaya, Allahabad, Gaya, not far from Kolkata. Mahaprabhu walked there, Bihar. So there's the lotus feet of Madhusudan there in the temple there, lotus feet, and all the Brahmins there where Madhu demon was pushed down, or Gaya Asur, his demon was pushed down under the earth from Madhusudan. So his lotus feet imprint is there. That's the temple, worship. And there you go for performing Shraddha. Actually, they're very welcoming for the ISKCON foreign devotees. And they do all the ceremonies. And they showed me the visitor's book with His Holiness Jai Pataka Shomi Maharaj's signature. It's a good, nice place. Yeah. And so all the Brahmins are sitting there, and then seeing them, hearing their glorification of the lotus feet of Hari, and seeing their worship. There are flower garlands all piled up, and the incense, and the Brahmins are doing prayers. So seeing that, Mahaprabhu, he became overwhelmed. Hearing them worship the Lord. Now you can understand that you could say it's like, I mean, in terms of Leela, like it's the Mahaprabhu's first Tirtha Jatra. Because prior to this, Mahaprabhu, he one time he went away for a few months. He went to East Bengal, Padma River, place is called Faridpur, and there he stayed for a few months teaching. He met Tapan Mishra, Shuno Mishra, Shuno Mishra, Kali Juga, Nahi Tapa Jogya, Jai John Bhaje Krishna, Shay Mahabhagya. He began the Sankirtan instructions to Tapan Mishra at that time. And then he returned to actually Lokhi Priya. She left the world in separation. Imagine that, huh? You go away for a trip, your wife is so painful for her, she leaves the body. Where is such a wife? I travel, and you come back after the first half an hour, it's like, wow, you're like the king. And after about half an hour, it's just like you're never going away. These are just some jokes for the Prabhus, you know. Don't mind, ladies. Just hear the boys talk. So anyway, he hadn't been, and this is like first Tirtha Jatra. It's a holy place. And so it had a big effect. I mean, ultimately, you go to Jagannath Puri, you can imagine Mahaprabhu, he's walking in, he sees the flag fluttering on the top of the Jagannath Mandir, the chakra. That overwhelmed him. He fell unconscious. He's trying to walk into Puri. He's just falling down unconscious every moment. Getting up again, reposing again, sees the temple, sees the flag, again falls unconscious. And he walks in front of Lord Jagannath again. 9 hours he's unconscious. So this is Mahaprabhu's lila. And when he goes to Gaya Dham, has an effect on him. Sarva Jagatar Bhagye Prabhu Gauda Chandra Prem Bhakti Prakasha Korila Aramba. Prem Bhakti Prakasha Korila Aramba. He begins the pastimes now of Prema, manifesting Prema. Love of God, manifesting Prema. So it erupts in his body. And all of the symptoms of love of God, the crying, the horripilation, the rolling on the ground, the tears of like flooding. The Brahmins are all astonished. They've never seen such a thing. And just by seeing their worship, they became so overwhelmed with love of God that Prem Bhakti Prakasha Korila Aramba. Aramba is a Hindi word. Aramba. He began at that time, like a change, like a special moment. So that as we were saying, that was right in that affected the whole planet. All of the sentient beings were all enlivened and enlightened just at that moment. Sarva Jagater Bhagye, because this Leela, it's affecting the whole universe. Sarva Jagater Bhagye, Prabhu Gauda Chandra, Prem Bhakti Prakasha Korila Aramba. And then from this moment, he's always in the state of this manifesting the love of God, tears flowing from his eyes. It's not like we have, I mean, when you're awake, you're awake. You wake up in the morning, you had enough sleep, and you go to sleep again, you can't awaken consciousness. It's not that this is just a momentary thing, and then again he's back to ordinary life. No, he's like constantly in this state. And then it regularly manifests in any type of situation. But he's constantly trembling with love of God. Mukunda Madhava Yadava Tatai Bhajaloko. The mridanga is tapping. Ghana Gana Tahe Jajirado. This is the poetry of Bhakti Vinod. The words actually, they sound like the object being described. Tatai Bhajaloko. The mridanga is tapping. Tatai Bhajaloko. Gana Gana Tahe Jajiro. The karatals are ringing. Preme Dala Dala Shonada Onga. Preme Dala Dala. His limbs are quivering with the prema when he's hearing the kirtan. Preme Dala Dala Shonada Onga. Charane Nupura Baje. So that he's always experiencing these feelings of love of God, and they began at this moment. Now, another extraordinary thing is that at that very moment, we come to Krishna consciousness, and we're in ignorance. I remember first time I went to temple, Mahaprabhu Mandir. I remember the first time, but I was critical actually. Even though I'd come to the temple and I was getting it purified, but still the baggage we drag along with us. And so I'll tell you the story. It's quite instructive. Instructive about Goswami Siddhanta. So it was Janmashtami. And actually, I was an art student, oil painting, and also I was also lead singer in the rock and roll band. So the guitarist, he said, "Hey, let's go to Krishna's birthday." And I'm like, "Oh yeah." Devatma Pradashaka Guru. Let's go to Krishna's birthday. Let's go to the temple. So we went to the temple. And it was Krishna's birthday. And the devotees were sitting in the temple room, maybe like twice this room. 150, 200 devotees. At that time, actually, there was no Indian expat. It was just all the Western people. There was no one from India there. And Janmashtami in the temple in Melbourne. It was 1980, perhaps 1983 or 1984. Perhaps some of you ladies not even born then or very young. See, I use one for you, ladies and Prabhus. So we went in there, and then the devotees give presents. Janmashtami, the devotees give presents, and they write cards. And so very personal. And temple president there, so he's standing in front of Radha and Krishna, Radha Ballabh, installed by Prabhupada. He's standing there. And he would get the gift, he'd say, this gift, and then they'd open the gift. Then there'd be a card, he'd read it in front of everybody, oh, Jai, Jai, Jai. And then there'd be some Lakshmi in the card, $150. Now, the temple president, because he also was the accounts, right? Accounts. So while he was on the altar and in front of the deities, and he would get the card, he would take the bills, the cash, and then he would put it in the right order, from the largest denomination. Just ready to be, counted in the treasury. And I'm sitting, and I'm thinking, this guy's counting the money. He's counting the money, and I'm thinking, it's so materialist. I thought these people are all spiritual. But he's putting the bills and I was thinking it in such a materialistic way. After many years of practicing the process of Krishna consciousness and deep study of Srila Prabhupada's books, I was able to actually understand that no, actually he's preparing the offering to offer to Krishna, and he's making it nice, but it took me quite a few years to actually put that together. That anar shakta shabishaya anyataha upayunjita nirbandha Krishna sambandhe juktam vairagyavuchite, that we're prepared to count so much money for Krishna because it's not for us, it's for Krishna. But it took a while for us to understand. But many times we're bewildered by the activities of the Vaishnavas, thinking that they're very absorbed in the material things, because they are. Because for them it's not material. This actually is how we advance in Krishna consciousness. You have to get busy in Krishna consciousness. And you become more attentive than the materialists, and you work harder than the materialists. But for this actually is the meditation, the absorption. All the devotees, you see, they're all so busy. They can't give up 70. So that's our philosophy. So, so it takes us, so in the beginning I had like many impure and materialistic critical thoughts. I don't have now. When I see those events, I don't have, so you get purified. But in the beginning, you're not purified. Even though you come into Krishna consciousness, you're still polluted with a lot of the influence of the modes of material nature. And it takes some time. I was critical of the devotees in many ways. Gradually, you begin to get purified by association. And it takes us some time. And then perhaps several years after practicing Krishna consciousness, several years, you're fortunate to come into association of someone that you would like to accept as guru. It takes several years before you're able to get such an opportunity. A parte pravishta chota bhaktagon avashay upadeshta koren ekjon. Actually, Gadadhar Pandit explains when he's with Mukunda Datta, how we actually require Abhashai Ekjon Upadeshja Korean Ekjon, a person who you can accept and trust as your guide in spiritual life. We require that actually because we're not really sure what Krishna wants of us. So we have to accept the words Guru Mukha Padma Bhakya Chite Te Puryakya. The words have to accept as being non-different from Krishna's desire. You need that actually to progress to the higher levels of Krishna consciousness. You need, but that takes a while before you can find such a person who you're able to repose your entire life in their hands, so to speak. But here Mahaprabhu, it's like he's ordinary Pandit. I mean, this is a Leela. He's this famous Pandit one moment, and then the next moment he's completely overwhelmed with love of God constantly, and his guru is standing there watching the whole event. His guru is standing there watching the whole event just at that moment. I mean, how special is that? And then they're discussing, and then Mahaprabhu, when he sees Ishvara Puri, Prabhupada, that Prabhu bole Gaya Jatra Shafal Amar, Gaya Jatra Shafal, the result, the fruit, the Shafal, success. My success in this journey, Gaya Jatra Shafal Amar, Jatakon Dekilon Charan Tomar. The moment I saw your lotus feet, then my journey to Gayadam has become successful. Tomar dekile matro koti pitrigon shekhone sharabonda paivimochon. I come here to deliver the pitrigon, but only those whose names are mentioned by the priest whilst he's performing the ceremony, only those people are delivered. But tomar dekliye matro, just by seeing you, koti pitrigon, 10 million of my forefathers, shekhone, at that moment, just by seeing your lotus feet, shekhone, sharabonda paivimochon, they're delivered from all bondage just by the moment I saw your lotus feet. So what a glorious event. And then Ishvara Puri Prabhupada, they had a discussion, and Ishvara Puri Prabhupada, actually I had a dream last night, and in that dream, an effulgent Brahmin told me that today you will meet the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So I was expecting, and what a meeting, here you come in and I see you, the demonstrating this. Already he was extraordinary, he was 7 foot tall. Go down to 7 foot, you imagine in Bengal, being 7 foot tall in Bengal? So already he was extraordinary, but then he becomes overwhelmed with love of God. And then there's initiation ceremony. the guru, he chastises the student. Ishvara Puri chastises him. Murka to me. He was a great Pandit, Nimai Pandit. He was so famous. Even way up there in Varanasi, they'd heard about him. Later, you'll hear that when Tapa Mishra is in Varanasi, and he's discussing, actually, he hadn't heard about him then. Anyway, he was famous, so famous. He's a scholar of Vedanta. Murka to me, and the Guru Ishvara Puri, Murka to me, you're fool. Murka to me, Tomar Nahika Vedanta Adhika. You have no eligibility to study the Vedanta. Krishna Nam Shara Japa. A mantra Shah. You should just constantly chant the name of Krishna. A mantra Shah. This is the essence of all the Vedas. And then he further instructed him not just to chant japa, but to dance. In the kirtan, dance, actually, there's a fundamental, dancing in the kirtan is a fundamental component of our philosophy. Fundamental component, dancing in the kirtan. Not that you just stand there with your hands folded, yeah, that's nice, but actually, Ishvara Puri, he ordered Mahaprabhu to dance. Nache, gao, Bhakti Sangha, dance and sing, Bhakti Sangha, Koro Sankirtan, perform Sankirtan, Krishna Nam Upadeshi, Tara Sharvajon, and instruct all the people in Krishna Nam, and in this way, you should Tara Sharvajon, you deliver all the people. So, having had this meeting with Ishvara Puri Prabhupada and receiving initiation from him, Mahaprabhu subsequently changed his whole approach, and his pastimes took on a major change in direction, and he began the Sankirtan movement. He returned to Navadip. He began the Sankirtan movement. But even before returning to Navadip, some interesting things happened, that Mahaprabhu began chanting that mantra in Gaya Dham, and the ecstasies which he was feeling just by seeing the lotus feet of Madhusudan, the ecstasies became further inflamed, and he wanted to go to Vrindavan in the middle of the night. He got up. He said to the students, "I'm not going back to Mayapur. I'm finished with household life." He said that. I'm not going back. And Sachi Devi and Vishnu Priya were there. I'm not going back to Mayapur. and he left in the middle of, he's for Vrindavan. He didn't know what direction. Koto dur jayete shunen dibyabani ekhon matoda na jaibo dvijamani. After some time, he hears a voice in the sky. Koto dur jayete shunen dibyabani. He hears a sound in the sky. Dibyabani. What does it say? Ekon matura na jaibo dvijamani. Now you will not go to Mathura Dvijamani. What a way to get some directions. For us, it's always such a struggle to make a decision. You know, will I do it? Will I not do it? Oh, I'm going to consult the senior devotees and this and maybe even astrologer. Will I do it? Will I not? And still, and you do it and then make the wrong decision anyway. The Mahaprabhu, and he hears a voice from the sky. No, don't go that way. Go back to Kanto now. Amazing. So then he goes back to Ishvara Puri. Kiba mantra dilo goshai. What mantra have you given me? Kiba mantra dilo goshai. Kiba tar ball. What is its power? Jopidi mantra karile babo. Become crazy chanting this mantra. And Ishvara Puri, he explained the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. He answered the Kiba mantra. You know, what mantra I've given. He explained. He answered that Hare Krishna Mahamantra Jaito Shabha. The very meaning, the very essence, the product, the Shabha, the essence. Hare Krishna Mahamantra Jaita Shabha Jai Jope. Whoever chants Jai Jope Tare Krishna Upajaye Bhav. Krishna means unto Krishna. Krishna Upajaye is eruption of bhav, feelings of love. And the more you chant, the more the feelings become aroused. The more the dormant love of Krishna is awakened by the transcendental chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So then when Mahaprabhu came back, as we mentioned, this is the devotees that gave so much pleasure. All the time they were praying. All the time they would prostrate themselves on the banks of Ganga. Ganga Devi, please bless Nimai, make him a devotee. They were already in love with him. They're already in love, and they appeared just to play a role in this past. They're already thinking of him all the time, already in love with him. But even though he wasn't amongst the Sankirtan team, he was a scholar, but still they're always secretly meditating on him. And then he comes back, the younger brother of Srivas Thakur, collecting flowers in Srivas Angan. Kund ek kund gach ache Srivas Mondir ek kund rupe kiba kalpataru avatare. In the courtyard of Srivas Thakur, there's a kunda, jasmine tree, kunda rupe, in the form of a jasmine tree, kiba kalpataru avatare. It's a tree from the spiritual world. He's always giving flowers all year round. Jasmine, kunda, so fragrant. All the devotees are gathering there every day to collect flowers. It never exhausts. So much flowers. They're all collecting, all the chatting, the latest devotional news. And the younger brother of Srivas Thakur, he comes, he's so ecstatic. You're so happy today. Parama Adbhut Kotha Maha Ashambhav Nimai Pandit Hoilo Parama Vaishnav. The Parama Adbhut Kotha. In Mayapur, we're building the Adbhut Mandir. The amazing, the never seen before, Adbhut Mandir. So this is the Adbhut Kotha, Parama Adbhut, the most extraordinary news, Parama Adbhut Kotha, Maha Ashambhav, the impossible. Nimai Pandit Hoilo Parama Vaishnav. Nimai Pandit has become A great Vaishnava, not just to become a devotee, is constantly shedding tears of love of God. Gaya, what is that? That Pada Padda Tirtha Laite Matra Nam. When he hears the name, Pada Padda Tirtha Laite Matra Nam. Is that Nayanir Jale? Sampurna Hoilo Standard. Just by hearing the name Pada Padda Tirtha, the whole place becomes, he's flooding the whole courtyard with tears. Just when he hears the name Pada Padda Tirtha. So then Mahaprabhu begins his Sankirtan pastimes in Mayapur with the intimate associates. So some thoughts this evening on Mahaprabhu's initiation in Gaya Dham, if there are any questions. Okay. You don't have to force yourself to ask a question. No problem. There's no questions? No problem. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri